I greet you all in Jesus' name. I want to welcome you all to chapter 12 of the classical book, The Great Controversy, written by Ellen G. White. Now, the title of this book, of chapter 12 says, The French Reformation. Now, the author of this book sums up this chapter by saying, France rejected the light and truth from heaven, and her actions resulted in the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. But the great question will be, how did France get to this position? Now, what we are seeing here is the battle of doctrine. The battle of doctrine between the doctrine of the church and Bible doctrine versus Bible doctrine. Now, the actors in chapter 12 are the Bishop of Milks. The Bishop of Milks took his stand with the Reformation, and he helped in spreading the truth to the laity as well as to the clergy. And he even helped when the French Bible came out, he was actually one of the people that helped in circulating it in his diocese. We also have King Francis I. King Francis I, at first, he regarded the Reformation with favor, but as time went on, his hand was found behind the persecution of the reformers. And then there was another person called Berquin. Berquin stood for the Reformation. He lost his life, they strangled him, and his body was burnt. And then we also have the Roman Church. The Roman Church was there to defend Romanism in the country of France. And then we have at last the French people. Now the French people, the poor French people, were caught in between Romanism and the Bible Christianity, and they were asked to choose between the two. But then, we want to talk about the three people that I think are the champions of Reformation in France. Number one is called Professor Jacques Lafleur. Professor Jacques Lafleur was a professor at the University of Paris, a devoted Catholic, a researcher of the word, he loved academics. So one time when he was researching the Bible, trying to find out about the church's saints in the Bible, unfortunately, he could not find any of the church's martyrs in the Bible. But what did he find? He found Jesus and the disciples and the pure doctrine of the Bible. He was so happy, he was overjoyed, and he loved it. And he actually resolved to teach the Bible to his students and to study it even more. Later on, he is the one who translated the New Testament Bible into French. He published it at Milks, and it came out at the very time when the German Bible of Martin Luther was coming out in Wittenberg. And then later on, during the persecution, Lafleur left France and went to Germany. Number two, we've got William Farel. William Farel was a student of Professor Lafleur, and he was coming from a God-fearing home, a devoted Catholic and the defender of that faith. This was a very interesting character because he would do anything to protect the Pope and the Church, to protect the Pope and to protect the Church. So when the Reformation was at its peak and then persecution came out, he had to leave Paris because Paris was something else during that time. He left Paris and went to his rural home in eastern France, and where he calmed down a little and did more of Reformation work there. And later on, he had to leave for Switzerland, where he helped in the work of Aurich Zwingli in Switzerland. And unlike his mentor, the professor, Farel declared the Bible doctrine of Christ in the public. He was not shy, he was not afraid of anything, he was a bold character. And then the third one is John Calvin. John Calvin was a young and bold and very intelligent young person. When he got to 12 years, he was actually given a church to be chaplain of a small church in France. And he enrolled at one of the universities in Paris, and he rose up the stages very fast. And the Roman Church saw in him the ability to take the church forward. Unfortunately, when John Calvin studied the writings of the great Martin Luther, he took his stand with the reformers and began to protest against his own church. He toiled for the cause of Christ until his followers even became known as French Calvinists. Others called them the Huguenot reformers. But something happened just ahead of time, which I call a wrong move. These people, these French Calvinists or Huguenots, in wanting to escalate the Reformation in France to the same level as that which was in Germany and in Switzerland, they made a mistake. The Calvinists staged a Reformation protest where placards were posted all over France attacking the masses, even attacking the superstitious acts of the Roman Church. And this resulted in a great persecution. The Huguenots, the Lutherans, these reformers lost their lives in this persecution. Some were tortured to death, others were thrown into the fire, others were dragged out of their homes and chained. It was a brutal event that took place under the Roman Church. Although many had converted to Bible Christianity, including royalty. For example, the sister of King Francis I was one of the people that had converted from the royal family, had converted to Bible Christianity. However, Rome seemed to have conquered. And in order to combat the Reformation in all of Europe, the church created the Jesuits, otherwise known as the Society of Jesus. And on page 234, Ellen G. White wrote, to combat these forces, meaning the reformers, Jesuitism inspired its followers with fanaticism that enabled them to endure like dangers and to oppose to the power of truth all the weapons of deception. And historian and author, one of my favorite, Grattan Guinness, in his 1887 book titled Romanism and Reformation, on page 2, he quotes Sir Robert Peel, who had said, "The day is not distant, and it may be very near, when we shall all have to fight the battle of the Reformation over again." So, from that, we realize that another Reformation is sure to come, and it will happen in our days. But persecution will be inevitable. However, there is no need for us to fear, for the omnipotent powers of heaven are on the side of the Reformation. Jesus once said, "Fear not, for I am with thee, and I will be with thee until the very end of time." And I'll leave you with a verse from 1 Peter 3 verse 14 that says, and if he suffer for righteousness, happy are he, and be not afraid of their terror, neither be troubled. For we have nothing to fear for the future, unless as we shall forget how the Lord has led us and his teachings in our past history. May God richly bless you.